The sun was just rising over Lake Willow, painting the water in soft shades of gold and orange. David and his family had been coming to this lake cabin for years, enjoying the quiet mornings and cool evenings. The cabin was small but comfortable, surrounded by tall pine trees that gave it a sense of privacy. Birds sang in the trees, and the gentle ripple of the water made the perfect soundtrack for a relaxing weekend. David's family had been unpacking the car, carrying bags of food, fishing rods, and blankets. His younger brother, Sam, ran ahead to check the dock, shouting with excitement as he saw a small boat tied there. "Look, David. The water is perfect," he called, waving his arms. David smiled, feeling a wave of relief. Life in the city could be stressful, but the lake cabin always gave him peace. He looked around at his parents and older sister, who were arranging the kitchen and making plans for breakfast. Everything felt normal, just like every summer weekend they had spent here. But this summer was going to be different. Across the lake, David noticed movement near the other cabins. A woman with sharp features and neatly combed hair was speaking to a boy who looked no older than 12. She had the kind of look that demanded attention, and David immediately knew she was the type of person who liked to control everything. He had heard rumors in the neighborhood about her. She was called Karen by the residents, and she was known for being very strict with the homeowners association rules. As the family settled in, Karen's son, Lucas, started staring at their cabin with wide eyes. David noticed him whispering to his mother, pointing at their property. The boy's excitement was clear, and David felt a little uneasy. Something about the way they were looking at his family's cabin felt wrong. Later, David was sitting on the porch, enjoying a cup of coffee, when Lucas suddenly ran over to the edge of their property. He was holding a small toy boat, pretending it was his own. "Mom says this lake cabin should be ours," Lucas shouted, not realizing how loud he was being. David froze. He had expected neighbors to notice them, but no one had ever acted this boldly. He stood up and walked toward the boy calmly. "Hey, you should not say that," he said gently. "This cabin belongs to my family. We have been coming here for years." Lucas laughed, not understanding. "I want this cabin. Mom says it can be ours soon." His words were said with confidence, but David could see the confusion in the boy's eyes. He was just a child, repeating what he had heard from his mother. David's sister, Emily, stepped outside, frowning. "David, maybe we should talk to her. This could get serious if it keeps going." David nodded. He had learned to handle difficult people carefully. "Let's give her a chance to understand," he said. He didn't want to make things worse, but he also knew they had to protect their family's property. Karen had been watching from across the lake. Her eyes were sharp, and she seemed certain that she had the right to demand what she wanted. She called Lucas back and spoke to him in a low voice, pointing at David's family as if to plan their next move. The calm of the lake morning had vanished, replaced with tension. David's father, Michael, noticed the strange behavior from the neighbors. He gave David a small nod, a silent reminder that the family needed to stay alert. Michael always believed in handling trouble with intelligence, not anger. As the sun climbed higher, the peaceful weekend began to feel uncertain. David knew this was the start of something unusual, something that could turn a simple lake visit into a challenge. But he also knew that his family was strong and smart. They had faced problems before, and they would handle this one together. For now, David decided to enjoy the lake while keeping a careful watch. He helped Sam get the boat ready and watched Emily arrange the porch chairs. They laughed and joked, trying to keep the tension away. Yet, in the back of his mind, he wondered how far Karen and her son would go. The summer had begun peacefully, but David sensed that this weekend at the lake cabin would not stay quiet for long. The morning sun was higher now, reflecting brightly on the lake water. David and his family were having breakfast on the porch, enjoying fresh bread and fruit. Sam was busy throwing crumbs to the birds while Emily poured juice into glasses. The laughter and chatter created a peaceful atmosphere, but David could not ignore the uneasy feeling from earlier. Across the small hill, Lucas and his mother were still watching. David noticed that Lucas seemed more confident now, and his mother, Karen, had a tight smile on her face. She spoke quietly to her son, pointing toward the cabin. David could not hear the words, but he saw the boy nod firmly. Something was about to happen. After breakfast, David went down to the dock to prepare the boat for a short ride on the lake. Sam followed eagerly, and Emily stayed near the cabin to organize things inside. As David adjusted the ropes, Lucas ran up onto their property, this time without hesitation. He waved his hands at David and shouted, "I want this cabin now." David froze. He had expected curiosity, but this was different. The boy's voice was loud and demanding, not playful like children usually were. David walked slowly toward him, trying to stay calm. "Lucas," he said carefully, "this is not your cabin. My family owns it. You cannot just take it." Lucas's eyes sparkled with defiance. "But my mom said it will be ours soon. She says you have to leave." His voice carried across the small clearing. David took a deep breath. He knew that arguing with a child would not work. Instead, he decided to speak firmly but politely. "No one can take this cabin unless my family agrees. You should go back to your mother and tell her to stop." Lucas's face twisted with frustration. He stomped his foot and looked at Karen, who had now stepped onto the path leading to their cabin. Her presence made David's chest tighten slightly. Karen held her hands on her hips and spoke loudly, as if addressing a crowd. "David, you need to give my son what is rightfully ours. This cabin should belong to our family. You are being unreasonable." David stood his ground, his voice calm but firm. "This cabin is ours. We have papers and agreements to prove it. You cannot claim it just because you want it. You must leave now." Karen's face turned red with anger. She pointed at David's family, her voice rising. "I will call the police. They will make you leave. You are breaking the rules." David's father, Michael, had been watching from the porch. He came down the steps and placed a hand on David's shoulder. His presence was quiet but powerful. "Karen," he said in a low, steady voice, "we follow the law. You cannot demand what is not yours. If you involve the authorities, we will also show the proof of ownership. Please leave our property now." Karen narrowed her eyes but did not respond immediately. She turned to Lucas and whispered something. The boy's anger seemed to grow, and he pointed at David again. "Mom says we have to get it." David could feel the tension rising. He realized that this was more than a simple disagreement. Karen and her son were trying to intimidate them, hoping to force them out. But David also knew that his family was prepared for challenges. They had faced difficult situations before, and they could handle this with patience and intelligence. Emily appeared beside Michael and David. She glanced at Lucas and Karen and shook her head. "This is getting out of hand. We need to stay calm and not let them control us." David nodded. He looked at Sam, who was now quietly standing behind him. The younger boy seemed to sense the tension, but he trusted David and the rest of the family. David knew they had to be careful but strong. They could not let fear guide their actions. Karen, frustrated by the calm and firm responses, took out her phone. She began dialing, clearly planning to involve the authorities. David's father noticed this and spoke quietly to the family. "Stay calm. Let her make her move. We will handle it the right way." As Karen's finger hovered over the screen, David realized that the weekend at the lake was no longer about relaxation. It was about standing up for what was theirs while keeping control of the situation. The family stayed united, facing the threat without anger or panic. David understood that this confrontation was just the beginning. How far Karen and her son would go, he did not know. But he was certain of one thing: his family would not back down from protecting their home and their peace. The lake remained calm, the birds continued to sing, and the sun shone brightly. Yet, a storm of conflict was slowly approaching, and David knew it would change their summer weekend forever. The phone in Karen's hand trembled slightly as she dialed the police. Her face was tight with determination, believing that law enforcement would quickly settle the situation. She glanced at Lucas, who was bouncing with excitement. "They will make them leave," she said, her voice full of confidence. David's family noticed the movement from the porch. Michael narrowed his eyes, recognizing immediately that the conflict had escalated. He turned to David and Emily. "Stay calm and do not panic. Let's see what happens," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but his eyes were alert. Meanwhile, Karen spoke to the officer on the phone, explaining her version of events. She exaggerated, claiming that David's family was refusing to leave property that did not belong to them. She wanted to make it seem urgent. Lucas grinned, thinking victory was near. David's mother, Laura, walked over to her husband and whispered, "They are calling the police. We need to be ready, but stay peaceful." She placed her hand on David's shoulder, giving him reassurance. Not long after, a police car arrived at the entrance of the lake property. The siren was soft, but it immediately drew attention. David's family stayed on the porch, watching carefully. Michael stepped forward to greet the officer as the car stopped. The officer, a young man named Officer Reed, got out and approached politely. "Good morning," Officer Reed said, holding a notebook. "I received a complaint about a property dispute here." He looked around and then at Karen, who was standing firmly beside Lucas. "Can you tell me what happened?" Karen pointed directly at David's family. "This cabin should belong to my family," she said firmly. "They are refusing to leave even though it is ours. My son wants it, and they must go." David took a step forward calmly. "Officer, we understand your role, but this cabin is legally owned by my family. We have documents to prove it," he said, keeping his voice steady. Officer Reed glanced at the papers Michael handed over. He reviewed them carefully, noting the official deeds, ownership forms, and previous HOA records. His brow furrowed slightly as he compared them with Karen's statements. Karen's confidence faltered. She hadn't expected the family to be so prepared. Lucas looked confused, realizing that the adults were serious. Karen tried to interrupt, insisting that the police should act quickly, but Officer Reed held up a hand. "Ma'am," he said, speaking gently but firmly, "these documents clearly show that this cabin belongs to this family. You cannot claim it without proof. I cannot force them to leave." Karen's face turned red, her frustration building. She looked at Lucas, who was now quiet, holding back a frown. The boy had believed this was going to be easy, but reality was different. Michael spoke next, his voice calm but authoritative. "Officer, we hope this resolves any misunderstanding. We have no intention of breaking rules. We just want to enjoy our property peacefully." Officer Reed nodded. "I understand. As long as everyone remains calm, there is no issue here. This is a private property matter, and legally, this family has the right to stay." Karen's lips pressed together. She muttered something under her breath and gestured for Lucas to move away. The boy looked disappointed but reluctantly followed his mother. Karen stared at David's family one last time before finally turning and walking back toward her car. David watched as the tension slowly faded. He felt a mix of relief and satisfaction. His family had handled the situation without anger, proving that patience and preparation were more powerful than aggression. Emily came beside him, exhaling deeply. "That could have gone much worse," she said quietly. David smiled. "We stayed calm, and it worked. They thought they could push us out, but they underestimated us." Sam, still holding his toy boat, ran over and asked, "Can we go on the lake now?" David nodded, placing a hand on his younger brother's head. "Yes, Sam. Let's enjoy the lake. We earned it." Michael looked at his family, proud of how they had handled the situation. "Remember, staying calm and united is always the best way to face trouble," he said. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the lake reflected its light brightly. The peaceful water seemed to welcome them back, and David realized that, no matter the challenges, their family would always protect what was theirs. For now, the threat had passed, and the family could finally enjoy their summer weekend at the cabin in peace. The lake was calm again, and the tension from earlier seemed to fade with the soft breeze. David and his family returned to the porch, feeling a mixture of relief and satisfaction. But deep inside, David knew this weekend would not stay ordinary for long. As the family unpacked more supplies, Michael glanced at his children and smiled. "There is something you should know," he said quietly. His tone was calm but carried a weight of importance. David, Emily, and Sam all turned to him, curious. "What is it, Dad?" David asked. Michael took a deep breath. "Our family has a secret. We have always kept it private, but now you should understand why we handle situations like this calmly and carefully." Emily raised an eyebrow. "What kind of secret?" Michael's eyes met each of theirs. "We work with the federal government. We handle important cases, often behind the scenes. That is why we know how to stay calm, how to plan, and how to deal with people who try to intimidate us." Sam's eyes widened. "You mean, we are like secret agents?" Michael nodded. "Yes, Sam. But this is not something we show to strangers. We only use this knowledge when it is necessary to protect our family or property." David felt a surge of understanding. That explained everything: the calm, the preparation, and the quiet confidence his parents always had. "So that is why Mom and Dad never panic," he said. Laura smiled gently. "Exactly. We teach you to stay aware, to think carefully, and to face challenges with intelligence. It is our way of keeping you safe." Emily laughed softly. "No wonder we handled Karen and her son so easily. They had no idea what they were up against." Michael nodded. "Yes. But we also do not want to scare anyone. We only use our training when it is necessary. Today, it was necessary." David looked out at the lake, thinking about Lucas and Karen. They had been confident, believing they could force the cabin to be theirs. but they had no idea that David's family had skills far beyond ordinary neighbors. Suddenly, Michael stood and walked toward the dock. "Let me show you something," he said. David, Emily, and Sam followed. Michael pointed to a small device on the dock. "This is part of our family's security system. It is designed to keep us safe and to monitor the property quietly. It is legal and important for our work." David studied the device, amazed. "It looks simple, but I guess it is very powerful," he said. Michael smiled. "Exactly. It allows us to see potential problems before they grow. That is why we noticed Karen's behavior early and handled it calmly. We are always prepared, but we do not act unless we have to." Emily nodded. "So all those weekends we spent at the cabin, learning about nature and teamwork, were also teaching us skills for situations like this." Michael put a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, Emily. Every experience helps you learn how to stay aware, make smart decisions, and work together as a family." Sam, still holding his toy boat, asked shyly, "Does that mean Lucas will never bother us again?" David laughed softly. "He might, but now we know how to handle it. We stay calm, we think carefully, and we use our knowledge wisely." Laura joined them on the dock, looking at her children with pride. "Remember, our strength is not in scaring others or using power unfairly. It is in staying calm, staying together, and knowing how to protect what is ours without causing harm." David felt a deep sense of pride in his family. They were not just a regular family with a lake cabin. They were skilled, prepared, and united. That knowledge gave him confidence. No matter what challenges came, they could face them together. As the sun reflected brightly on the water, David realized that the weekend had taken a surprising turn. What had started as a simple visit to the lake had revealed not only the courage and intelligence of his family but also the importance of unity and calm. For the first time, he understood that their quiet strength was a shield, one that kept their home, their peace, and their family safe. And now, nothing could shake their confidence. David smiled at Sam, Emily, and their parents. This summer at the lake cabin would be memorable not only for its beauty but for the lessons it had taught them about courage, calm, and the power of family. After the secret of the family was revealed, David and his siblings felt a new sense of confidence. The lake cabin no longer felt just like a summer retreat. It was a place where they could learn, explore, and, if needed, protect what was theirs. But Karen and Lucas were still nearby, and David knew they had to remain cautious. Later that afternoon, Karen returned to the edge of the property. This time she was quieter, but her eyes still held a sharp determination. She stood with Lucas beside her, as if preparing to make another claim. The family noticed her and decided to handle the situation differently. They would not react with anger or fear. Instead, they would show calm and intelligence, just as Michael and Laura had taught them. David stepped forward and waved politely. "Hello, Karen," he said with a calm voice. "Is there something you would like to discuss?" Karen hesitated, clearly surprised by David's polite tone. Most people would argue or raise their voices, but David's calmness unsettled her. I just want to make sure this property is available for my son," she stammered. Emily joined her brother. "Karen, the property belongs to our family. We have documents, and we follow all the rules. There is nothing more to discuss if your intent is to take it by force." Karen's face turned red. She wanted to argue, but she noticed the serious expressions of the family. She also realized that Lucas was looking confused. The boy was starting to understand that their approach would not work against a family united and prepared. Michael walked toward the edge of the property and spoke in a calm but firm voice. "Karen, our goal is not to make enemies. We enjoy this lake cabin, and we would like to spend our summer peacefully. If your goal is to continue the conflict, you will find it is unnecessary. You do not have the right to this property." Karen opened her mouth to respond but found herself silent. She had expected fear or anger, not calm confidence. Lucas looked up at her and whispered, "Mom, they are not afraid of us." Laura stepped forward with a gentle smile. "That is right, Lucas. We do not act aggressively. We handle problems with intelligence and fairness. If you try to force something that is not yours, you will only create trouble for yourself." The calm but firm words made Karen pause. She had underestimated the family's strength and unity. She realized that her actions had been guided by pride, not reason. She looked at Lucas, who now seemed unsure. The boy had thought he could claim the cabin easily, but the calm determination of the family had changed the situation. David spoke next, his voice steady and kind. "Karen, we hope you understand. The cabin belongs to us. You cannot claim it. We all can enjoy the lake in our own ways, but this is our home." Karen swallowed, trying to keep her composure. She glanced at Lucas, who nodded slowly. The boy had learned a lesson about respect and patience. Karen finally understood that persistence without reason would not work against a united family that knew how to protect themselves. With a reluctant sigh, Karen turned away. We understand," she muttered. Lucas followed, still looking thoughtful. The mother and son walked back to their car, leaving the family at the cabin. David felt a sense of relief. He turned to Emily and Sam. "We handled that without anger. That is more powerful than yelling or fighting." Emily smiled. "They learned their lesson without us needing to be aggressive. Calmness and intelligence are stronger than force." Michael and Laura nodded, proud of their children. "This is exactly what we wanted you to understand," Michael said. "Being united, staying calm, and knowing how to protect your rights is more important than proving someone wrong with anger." Sam laughed, holding his toy boat. "Can we finally go on the lake now?" David chuckled. "Yes, Sam. The lake is all ours for now. Let's enjoy it." As the family returned to the water, they felt a sense of accomplishment. The weekend had tested them, taught lessons, and reminded them of the importance of unity. Karen and Lucas had learned that calmness, preparation, and respect were far stronger than threats or impatience. The lake reflected the late afternoon sun, peaceful and bright. David knew that their family's strength came not from force but from intelligence, patience, and trust. This lesson would stay with them long after the weekend ended. The summer had started with tension, but now it felt like a time for laughter, adventure, and learning. The family could finally enjoy their cabin with peace of mind and pride in how they had handled the challenge. The next morning, the lake cabin was quiet and bright. Sunlight danced on the water, and a gentle breeze rustled the pine trees. David and his family enjoyed a peaceful breakfast, knowing that the tension with Karen and her son was finally behind them. Yet, everyone remained alert, aware that people could be unpredictable. Michael glanced at his children and smiled. "Today, we enjoy the lake fully, but we stay aware. That is part of staying safe and calm," he said. His words reminded them that being prepared was as important as enjoying life. Sam, holding his fishing rod, ran toward the dock. "Can we go fishing now?" he asked, excitement in his voice. David laughed. Yes, Sam. Let's make the most of the day. Emily followed, helping Sam set up his fishing line. David grabbed a small boat, checking the ropes and making sure everything was ready. The lake looked inviting, with sparkling water and soft ripples. It felt like the perfect escape from city life, peaceful and free. While they prepared, David noticed a movement near the edge of the property. Karen and Lucas were there, but they did not come onto the family's land. They were standing quietly, watching from a distance. Karen's face was less sharp now, and Lucas seemed thoughtful. They had clearly understood that their previous approach would not work. David nodded to his father. "They are watching," he said quietly. Michael nodded. "Yes. Let them watch. But remember, we do not act unless necessary. Calmness is our strength." David, Emily, and Sam climbed into the boat. The water was cool and smooth, and the boat moved silently across the lake. They laughed as they fished, enjoying the freedom of the open water. The sunlight reflected on the ripples, creating patterns that seemed almost magical. While fishing, Emily noticed a small bird struggling near the shore. "Look, it is caught in some branches," she said, concerned. Without hesitation, David and Emily guided the boat closer. Carefully, they freed the bird, letting it fly safely into the sky. Sam clapped his hands. "We saved it," he said, proud of their quick thinking. Michael smiled. Kindness and awareness go together. Protecting life, respecting nature, and acting calmly are all important lessons. After some time on the lake, they returned to the cabin for lunch. Karen and Lucas were gone, leaving the property entirely to David's family. The cabin felt safe again, and the family enjoyed sandwiches and fruit, talking and laughing together. As they ate, David reflected on the events of the past 2 days. The confrontation with Karen had tested their patience and calmness. It had shown them the importance of preparation, unity, and quiet confidence. Most importantly, it had reminded them that strength does not always come from force but from intelligence and careful action. Emily leaned back in her chair. "I think Lucas learned a lot from this," she said. "He saw that demanding things and being aggressive does not work." David nodded. "And Karen probably learned that too. People cannot always get what they want by pushing others." Michael joined in. "Exactly. And this is the lesson we want you to remember. Staying calm, respecting rules, and protecting what is rightfully yours is always the best approach." After lunch, the family went for a walk along the lake shore. They skipped stones, collected smooth rocks, and enjoyed the beauty of the forest. Every step felt like a reminder that life could be both peaceful and full of lessons. As the sun began to lower in the sky, painting the lake with shades of gold, David felt a deep sense of contentment. Their family had faced a challenge and emerged stronger. The cabin was more than a place to relax, it was a space where they could learn, grow, and support each other. That evening, they sat on the porch together, watching the water. Sam leaned against David, Emily sipped juice, and Michael and Laura shared a quiet smile. The lake was calm, the air cool, and the world felt right. David knew that, no matter what challenges came in the future, their family would face them with calmness, intelligence, and unity. The cabin had been tested, and their peace had been restored. For the first time in the weekend, David allowed himself to relax fully. The family had protected their home, taught valuable lessons, and found joy in simple moments. The lake reflected the final light of the day, bright and peaceful, promising more happy weekends to come. The next morning, the lake was calm and golden in the early sunlight. David and his family sat on the porch, drinking coffee and listening to the gentle ripple of water. After the events of the past days, there was a sense of peace that felt earned and solid. David looked at his siblings. "This weekend turned out very different than we expected," he said. "But I think we all learned a lot." Emily nodded. "Yes. We learned that staying calm and smart is better than arguing or getting angry. And we saw how being prepared can protect us." Sam, still holding his toy boat, grinned. "And we had fun on the lake too. I like that part the most." Michael smiled. "The lessons and the fun go together. Life teaches us through experience, and how we respond matters more than the challenges themselves." As they prepared to enjoy the day, David noticed Karen and Lucas driving slowly along the road near the edge of the property. They paused for a moment, watching from a distance, but made no move to approach the cabin. David realized that they had learned something important. Their presence no longer brought fear or frustration, only a reminder that patience and wisdom can solve conflicts. Laura spoke softly. "It seems they have understood the limits. Sometimes people learn better from calm examples rather than arguments." David nodded. "Yes. I think Lucas learned about respect, and Karen learned that pushing others does not get results. It is better to focus on your own life." The family decided to spend the day enjoying the lake and the forest around the cabin. They took the boat out for a long ride, fishing in quiet spots and exploring the small inlets along the shore. David helped Sam row, while Emily collected smooth stones along the water's edge. Michael and Laura watched, satisfied to see the children learning and laughing together. At one point, David spotted a small family of ducks swimming nearby. He pointed them out to Sam and Emily. "Look, they are moving together. The mother leads, and the babies follow. That is teamwork, just like our family." Sam laughed. "The ducklings are funny. They are tiny but strong." Emily smiled. "And they stick together. That is what matters. Teamwork and trust help you face any challenge." As the afternoon passed, the family returned to the cabin for a simple meal. They talked about the weekend, sharing stories and joking about the misunderstandings with Karen and Lucas. Even Sam, who had been worried at first, laughed as he remembered the boys' angry stomping on the first day. Michael looked around at his children and wife. "This weekend has been a lesson for all of us. We protected what was ours, stayed calm, and showed intelligence in action. That is more valuable than any victory or argument." David nodded, feeling proud of the way they handled everything. "We also learned that peace comes when you act wisely, not with anger. That is important for life." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the family sat together on the porch. Sam leaned against David, Emily held a cup of juice, and Michael and Laura held hands. The cabin felt warm, safe, and full of memories. David thought about Karen and Lucas. They had caused tension at first, but now they had left without conflict. The family had not needed to act aggressively. Their calm and unity had resolved the problem. Laura spoke softly. "Sometimes the best way to protect yourself is with patience, preparation, and quiet confidence. That is what we did this weekend." David smiled, looking at the water. "And now we can enjoy the lake, knowing that our family is strong and ready for anything." The evening was peaceful. The gentle breeze, the sounds of the lake, and the laughter of the family made everything feel right. David knew that the lessons of the weekend would stay with them. As stars began to appear in the sky, the family sat together, feeling calm and happy. The lake cabin was not just a place to relax, it was a place to learn, to grow, and to strengthen the bonds that made them strong. David realized that no matter what challenges came their way, they could face them together. The weekend had tested them, taught them valuable lessons, and shown them the power of calm, intelligence, and unity. The lake reflected the stars, bright and steady. David, Emily, Sam, Michael, and Laura sat quietly, enjoying the moment. The family had faced conflict, learned lessons, and restored peace. Their summer weekend at the lake cabin would remain a memory of calm strength and togetherness. And with that, the lake returned to its peaceful state, as if it had always known that this family was capable of handling anything with wisdom and care.